What's going on, geeks? So I've been getting a question from a lot of you guys lately regarding the third and fourth generation iPad Pro. Will they be able to run these new desktop applications that could be coming as early as WWDC 2021 to the M1 iPad? I'm going to give you the best answers and indicators that we have so far. But before we get started, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss, and stick around to the end as I've got some more giveaway goodness regarding these AirTags. I'm Chris Grant Jr. It's the Granted Geek Show. Okay, so before we get started, I'm working on some designs for some Granted Geek merch, the GG glasses and maybe a silhouette. Let me know if you'd be interested in that by hitting the like button. And let's talk about these iPad generations. So I'm not going to waste your time. The short answer of it is yes. These iPads, the third and fourth generation, will be able and are capable of running these new powerful desktop class apps that could be coming to the M1 iPad. But the question is, will they? Now that gets a little bit more complicated. So let's talk some numbers for a second. I'm not going to get too much into the weeds, but basically the new M1 iPad Pro is about 50% faster in terms of CPU and 40% faster in terms of graphics than the fourth generation iPad Pro. And the reason I mentioned the third generation iPad Pro as well is because there was very little difference in terms of performance between the third and fourth generation. In fact, if you go on even sites like Geekbench, there are a lot of tests where the third generation iPad Pro is still beating the current gen or the fourth generation iPad Pro. And so by the numbers, you're looking at two devices that are easily as powerful as Intel i7, i5 processors that, as we all know, were running Logic Pro, Davinci Resolve, etc. So when it comes to is it possible for these devices to run these professional apps? That's a no-brainer. It's not even a question. The answer is yes. But there's some other things that complicate the situation. So obviously, if you're talking internal storage speed, people who use Final Cut Pro know that it does a lot of background rendering. Now you can turn that on and off, but if you're dealing with a 256 or even a 512 gig SSD inside the iPad, that can get filled up really quickly, especially depending on what type of video files you're working with, whether it be 4K or higher, the bitrate, all those things can increase the size. And then when you get into that background rendering, it can cause a big problem. So hence the bigger storage capacities that we now have with the iPad going up to 2 terabytes. That's going to be more than enough storage to deal with Final Cut's background rendering on top of a significant more amount of applications that you run. If you look at the average amount of apps on an iPhone versus a computer, maybe on a computer you have some pro apps, you have some school type apps, your email and things like that. But on the iPad, you've got games on there, for the casual gamer, you've got your Netflix and videos. All of this to say that a lot of people's iOS devices can be just as cramped or even more than your typical laptop. So storage is taken care of in the newer generations of iPads, and so that may be Apple's reasoning for not letting them do it. Another thing we have to be aware of is the transfer speeds, right? So the older generations, like the second gen iPad Pro, still used Lightning, but since the third and fourth generations, they moved to USB-C, which, while it added more versatility in terms of what the port could do and a bump in speed as well, it is still not enough for, say, editing off of an external drive or even quick transfers of, say, 4K footage from a Blackmagic or a Canon R5 or what have you. It's just going to take a long time to transfer those video files, and so that may be another reason that they don't allow some of these desktop applications to make their way onto the fourth and third generation iPad. Now, this could also be on an app-by-app basis. Some applications that are pro, like a Photoshop, may not need so much external stuff happening, and photos, while they can be pretty hefty, they're not as big as video files typically, and so maybe the internal storage space on your iPad will be able to handle a professional photographer who's doing serious editing on full-fledged Photoshop on the third or fourth generation iPad. So it may be on an app-by-app basis, but I can almost guarantee that with these higher-end video editing platforms, and even some of the AAA games that we're hearing could be coming to iOS, you're going to need that high transfer speed, the M1 chip, the 8 gigs of RAM, and possibly higher. So there are some limitations that I can see cropping up in the future of iOS when it comes to applications, certainly desktop and professional applications. But really, it all comes down to what Apple wants to do. I mean, from our perspective, we know that hardware-wise, these devices devices are as powerful as i5, i7, even I think on the high end i9 processors that are coming out from Intel, and we know for years they've been running Logic and Final Cut, Davinci, etc. Albeit maybe not at the best optimal speeds, but it was still capable of doing it. So one way to make sure that this happens, or to help it happen, is to raise awareness of this topic by, shameless plug, sharing this video with your friends, liking the video, so we can raise awareness for this issue that people know these devices can run these pro apps, and kind of put the pressure on Apple maybe to reconsider, if they haven't already, putting these desktop applications on the 3rd and 4th generation iPad Pros. So that's the best information we have to date. Obviously, we're going to know more at WWDC 2021, which is coming up very soon. And stay tuned, as I'll be doing an all iPad Pro workflow series to show how the new iPads work and how they work with professional apps. I'm talking to several different companies, from case manufacturers to stand manufacturers to external displays, etc., trying to find out what the best new professional workflow is for these new M1 iPads. But if you're still watching, thank you for sticking tuned to the end of the video. I don't want to waste your time. I can give you an additional 2 entries into our AirTags giveaway. So you're going to go down and leave a comment on the video, whatever it may be, say whatever you want, positive or negative. But before you do, type AYO Geek Show, AYO Geek Show, as in granted Geek Show, and that's how I'll know you stuck around to the end of the video, and you'll get your additional 2 entries into our AirTags giveaway that's coming up very soon. They're already ordered, they're already on their way. So stay tuned, guys, with a like and a subscribe. Click the bell so you don't miss. I'll probably be going live this Thursday night into Friday morning, as the pre-orders for the new M1 iPad Pros become available. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I'm Chris Grant Jr. It's the Granite Geek Show.